Good afternoon, everybody. It's time for our City Commission meeting, Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 at 1 o'clock. We're holding this meeting by Zoom. There was no pre-meeting. The City Commission will be held via Zoom, an internet-based meeting platform. This public meeting, while being conducted in a virtual manner in order to comply with the State of Kansas Governor Kelly's Executive Order number 20-29, will comply with the Kansas Open Meetings Act. The public is free to submit written comments via email to clyn.hurtado@gardencityks.us regarding any item on the May 19th, 2020 agenda, and those comments will be shared with the City Commission. Please include your name, address for the public record. To participate in the virtual meeting via Zoom during the meeting, you will need to use the raise your hand function in the Zoom app to notify the Zoom moderator if you desire to speak. Proper meeting decorum is expected of all in attendance at the meeting, and anyone who fails to act properly may be removed from the meeting. The moderator will call on individuals who have requested to speak using the raise your hand function. We will allow everyone to ask their question on the topic, but please be patient as we navigate through the raised hands. The public may participate in the meeting by using the free digital conference service Zoom. And the information is on our website, or you can join by phone, which you would dial 1-312-626-6799, and there are additional numbers also. Passcode 504670. To watch, the public can also watch the meeting live on Facebook Live at City of Garden City KS and on YouTube at City of Garden City KS. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to announce we're going to call the meeting to order, and I'll ask the city clerk if we have quorum.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, so we have quorum. So with that, we're going to go ahead and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation, and it's Commissioner Ortiz's turn to lead the pledge and also the invocation.
Let's stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for everything that you have given us. We ask that you just continue to give us moisture throughout our land. We're so grateful for the springtime and the sprouting of green leaves and flowers and everything that you do to beautify your architecture, Lord. So we just pray that you be with our hearts, be in our minds as we make some tough decisions here today with all of our leaders. And we ask that you just help us to keep an open mind and an open heart, Lord. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortiz. So again, I know you've all had a chance to review the minutes. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes? I'm scanning the Zoom panels, and if there is anything, okay, there is nothing. So with that, we're going to go ahead and we'll have the May 5th, 2020 commission meetings approved as presented. And with that, we're down to our public comment agenda on our schedule. So again, we have allowed 30 minutes. Please, we're going to limit you to 5 minutes per spokesperson. And if you would like to comment, again, use the raise your hand function, or again, email Clyn Hurtado and she can also read your response. So we'll go ahead and we'll open that up to public comment. Is there any public comment today?
Yes, there is a letter, an email that I did receive. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, could you turn just up a little bit, Clyn? Okay, good.
Is that better?
Yes.
Maybe. Greetings, commissioners. I would like to offer public comment on the reopening of the big pool for the summer of 2020. I would be opposed to the opening of the pool this season. Currently, a majority of the individuals in Finney County that have tested positive for COVID-19 have been in age groups under 45. I would assume that while many of these individuals would be recovered by the time the pool were to open, I would also assume that we continue to see a rise in these age groups. I am concerned concerned about the additional cost in cleaning, staff to clean, training for staff should a date be open be set. I would like the city focus on promoting attractions like city parks and trails and the zoo, using some of the unused pool fund to install additional hand sanitizer stations in these locations. Thank you for taking time to carefully consider the opening of the pool, and I am not envious for you to having to make these decisions. Can't wait to see you all at the new big pool next year. Thank you, Beth Coxel.
Thank you, Celine. I appreciate that. Anything else any other public comment? Okay, see and hearing none, we'll go ahead and we're going to move to consideration of petition, memorials, and whatever that word was. I cut it off on my print. So we don't have I don't see anything. So Matt, we're ready for reports of the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We've got a few items here. First of all, I'd like to invite Public Utilities Director Mike Muirhead to give an update on the COVID-19 electric credits. Mike?
Okay, thank you. You can hear me okay?
Yes, thanks.
Oops, I'm sorry. As soon as we opened up, my phone rings. I apologize. Mike Muirhead, Public Utilities Director. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. We thought we'd provide an update as to the COVID-19 electric credits that the Commission authorized to be dispersed on April 7th, 2020. It was a one-time credit to Garden City Electric customers, and the credit was done, you guys approved, was due to the unprecedented impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the health and economy of Garden City. The governing body, recognized the immediate need for some financial relief in whatever form it may come. And after discussion, it was agreed and concurred that we would move forward with this one-time credit. The total amount that was authorized by the Commission was $746,775. To date, there's been $672,287 dispersed within the community to the People's Electric accounts. All of the $50 credits have been applied to the residential accounts. There was a small error in the small general service and the large general service accounts. Those have since been corrected, and those are out on their next billing cycle. So within the next billing cycle, probably within 2 weeks, all of those credits will have been applied to the Garden City Electric customers. And just on the utility side of things, we have heard several positive comments, and I'm grateful that the City Commission chose to do that. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for the update. And yeah, anytime, I know a lot of people have said thank you, and any part of help was really appreciated. And so thank you and the staff for really coming up with a way that we could offer something that was real and relevant and needed at that time. Any comments or questions for? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mike, so much.
You're welcome.
Mayor, item B is a update on some information that the city received last week. We received information that there would be additional funds through the CARES Act. Bear with me while I call up that item. Through the CARES Act, sent to the state of Kansas, distributed in what we understand to be a competitive fashion through the Department of Commerce. And so $9 million in federal funding is what's been made available to the state's Community Development Block Grant Program. And this is, again, for the community response to COVID-19. Staff has worked with Finney County Economic Development Corporation to review eligibility for funding for both the economic development portion of the funds and the meal programs portion of the funds. It was determined that the city could not apply for the meal program funds as the city or the county had to meet aggregate low to moderate income standards, which is 51% for the entire population. Just for a matter of information, Garden City and Finney County around that 45 to 46, so we don't qualify. The economic development funds can qualify by virtue of a business's employee census meeting the 51% low to moderate income standard. This is the same standard which is required in the CDBG loans recently offered by the city. A special meeting has been set for this Friday at 11 a.m., Friday, May 22nd, for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the city's intent to apply for these funds to underwrite the expense for providing grants to qualifying businesses. The program, if approved for full funding at $300,000, would provide for up to 38 $7,500 grants and the associated administrative expenses due the CDBG grant administrator. If the governing body chooses to separately fund the $15,000 for grant administrator expenses, the program could award up to 40 $7,500 grants. The Kansas Department of Commerce is not allowing the funds to be dispersed as revolving loans. When we first saw this information, we thought that would perhaps be the best option, certainly the easiest one to administer, because we would really just be resupplying that source of money that we've been loaning out. However, that's not going to be the case. The criteria established by the Department of Commerce indicates that these must be grants. So businesses that applied for and received revolving CDBG loans over the last couple of months will be eligible to also apply for grants. However, they will not be able to show or be reimbursed for expenses shown in their loan application. And quite simply, this can't be in effect a double dip. The same holds true for any federal COVID-19 relief funding assistance applied for and received by the businesses. So this is for informational purposes only, just a little background for both you and any public that's watching, heading into Friday's special meeting at 11 a.m.
And Matt, just to make sure that we will have that available on Zoom and YouTube also, so that will be open to the public also, correct?
That is correct. We'll conduct that meeting, Mayor, just in the same fashion that we're conducting this one.
Thank you for the information. Any other questions or matter? Sounds like a great opportunity. Thank you for.
Yeah, we're excited. Yeah, we're excited for this this opportunity. I also want to add just a couple of things under manager's report, Mayor, if it's okay. One, we had the opportunity, and I'm sure you'll probably speak to it in more detail at the end of the meeting. We had an opportunity to tour the Tyson facility last week, and it was I'm very appreciative of the folks there at Tyson. They were Tony Lang and his team have taken significant measures to protect their employees and their safety, and I was impressed. I've been through that plant probably on 4 other occasions over the last 18 years, and the changes that have been made, like in the gatehouse, and how folks are their temperature is scanned, and if they're redirected at the time, really with 99 degrees, not even 102, they are rerouted to a nurse, and there's follow-up that occurs after that. Their break area, their willingness to talk in detail about how they've changed some shifts isn't the right word, because they use shifts for the major blocks of time, but within those major blocks of time, the sequencing of the day and the breaks and all of that is dramatically different now. And so, like a lot of us, they're reinventing their operations internally. And I really, well, it was fascinating to look, specifically at, Tyson and that plant and that size of plant. It always is. an impressive facility to go through. I think I was maybe more impressed with the ingenuity and the way that they were adapting and creating solutions to problems with distance and problems with ensuring that they could disinfect. So we're really appreciative of that tour, and I would encourage any of you, they extended the offer, any of you that would want to take the tour as well, I would encourage you to do that. We need to be mindful of the Open Meetings Act, and you need to go no more than 2 of you at a time, but they've extended that offer, and I would encourage you to do that. We'll try to coordinate that through CLIN, if that's all right with you. Also received a letter just prior to the meeting. I believe it was sent to all of you, but I didn't double check email addresses. But we'll certainly include it as part of a letter addendum to the next packet, just so that it's part of the record. A letter from Dr. Burns regarding the status as of May 19th of her professional opinion on the status of the COVID-19 and the presence of that virus in Finney County. So I would call your attention to that letter, and I think that's it for the oral reports. The rest of the items on the agenda are staff reports. We did want to make you aware that we had a large bid, not get any responses. And so we will, that's at the wastewater treatment plant, and it was also kind of a package deal with the wastewater collection system. So we're reviewing some different options. Depending on the options we choose, that may or may not come back to the commission. We thought it made sense to package everything together to draw interest. Clearly, we probably, either that didn't work or it was just really bad timing for doing something of that nature. So we're going to review some different options, which could include breaking the project back up into some more specific elements. It's likely that if we do that, the specific elements will be within the threshold that the city manager can approve the competitive bids. And so this item may not come back to the commission, but we, because we started in this manner, we'll likely update you in some form or fashion, even if it isn't a business item. Do you have any questions on the items that are on the manager's report? There's probably 8 or 9 staff reports in there.
I didn't have any questions. Did anyone else have? I mean, the reports are really well done, and it looks like we're continuing to move forward. So I appreciate the work the staff is doing. Any questions on staff reports? Okay,
Mayor. I think we're ready then for the item 9A. It's the appropriation ordinance, and if approved, it would be number 2507-2020A.
Do we have a motion to approve the appropriation ordinance?
Commissioner Ortiz will make a motion to approve the ordinance number 2507-2020A.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Shannon Dick. I'll second.
Commissioner Dick seconds. So it's been moved and seconded. Again, I'll go ahead and we'll do the roll call. Again, I'm just following our order of our reports. So Commissioner Ortiz, yay or nay?
Yay.
Commissioner Euler?
Yay.
Commissioner Dick?
Aye.
Mayor Unruh, aye. Commissioner Cessna?
Aye.
Okay, so it's passed 5-0. Thank you so much. And I did note the meetings of note, so I know that you're all planning on being on May 22nd. So again, I was going to ask, man, on the meetings of note, how long do you anticipate the meeting to go on May 22nd? I forgot to ask that earlier.
Well, it's always a little bit of a danger. I didn't estimate the last meeting to be 6 hours, but I would say less than 30 minutes.
Oh, okay. I was going to say on meetings of notes, one thing I found out is that you can actually listen to the meeting without watching it on Facebook Live. So that's been kind of nice. So you don't have to sit in front of a computer, and that's been, so you can do some other stuff while you're listening. So, but yeah, we just encourage you to attend that meeting, and thank you. I appreciate that. Okay.
Mayor and Commissioners, the next item is under ordinances, consideration of ordinances and resolutions. Item 10A, the governing body is asked to consider and approve making improvements to the city's, for making improvements to the city's aquatic facility eligible for financing. And if approved, this would be ordinance number 2864-2020. At the City Commission meeting on February 18th, the governing body approved the design services contract for the aquatic facility with Confluence Architecture, Inc., and also approved at that meeting to move forward with the construction manager at risk process for construction. The request for qualifications was approved and sent out on March 17th, 2020, with responses due April 13th, 2020. To move forward at this point, the project is required to be formally authorized. The ordinance also authorizes the future issuance of general obligation bonds and temporary notes to pay costs of the project. This ordinance relies on KSA 12-1736 as amended, which is the Public Building Act. And this allows the governing body to alter, repair, construct, reconstruct, remodel, replace, make additions to, furnish, or equip any public building facility, and to issue general obligation bonds of the city for such purposes. While this action allows the governing body to move forward with the aquatics project, it does not obligate the city to do the project or to issue financing. Both of those steps will require future action by the governing body. So your alternatives before you are to approve the ordinance as presented, to not approve the ordinance, or to defer this action to a later date. We recommend, based on the previously expressed interest to move forward on the pool project, that you approve the ordinance.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the commissioners? So again, understanding that this is the next step in the process as we move toward a new aquatics facility. Any questions or comments from commissioners on what City Manager Matt Allen has presented to you or was in our packet?
This Commissioner Ortiz, just kind of going over it again on, this not being an actual contract for the work being done on the pool. This is more just for the bonds. And it's not necessarily a guaranteed match price from the contractor as well, correct?
That's correct. Absolutely right. This is a next step. You're estimating the principal amount. It's we believe a conservative number, which would be sort of the MO for how we set up these projects, so that when it's time to consider kind of pulling the trigger, so to speak, that everything's in place for the financing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? This is Mayor Unruh. I know that when I spoke with Melinda Hitz, the finance director, that again, this idea of where that finance is going to take place and how the GO bonds are used, you'll have a full presentation on that before they're issued. Is that what I'm understanding too, Matt?
Yes, you will, and likely as indicated in the fiscal note. The ordinance also allows for the issuance of temporary notes in advance until permanent financing is put in place. In the larger projects we've had over the last few years, we've definitely done the strategy of where we issue temporary notes. That gives you a two-year financing mechanism so that you get that price down to exactly what it was, and then that's what you go issue permanent financing on.
And then with the strength of the city, we've been able to get some incredible rates. So any other questions or further discussion?
This is Commissioner Cessna. I make a motion we approve ordinance 2864-2020.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Shannon Decky, I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. So again, yay or nay, we're down the line. Commissioner Ortiz?
Yay.
Commissioner Euler,
Yay.
Commissioner Dick,
Aye.
Commissioner Cessna,
Aye.
Mayor Unruh, yay. Okay, great, thank you. Passes 5-0.
Mayor and Commissioners, we have a 1:30, public, or an agenda item that was slated for 1:30. I don't believe which is the next item, 11A. I don't believe item 11B is going to be taken care of in 4 minutes. I would recommend we jump down to 12A if that's okay with all of you.
That would be great. Thank you, Matt.
The governing body is asked to consider and approve funding awarded under the fiscal year 2020 Bureau of Justice Assistance Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program in the amount of $45,881. Chief Utes, I believe this is your item.
Here he comes.
Good morning, or good afternoon, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you, Chief.
Okay, Chief Utes, Police Department. As Matt mentioned, you're being asked to consider and approve the funding from the Bureau of Justice. The Police Department, on behalf of the City of Garden City, submitted an application through the fiscal year 2020 BJA Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program for supplies, equipment, personnel, and expenses related to the COVID-19 pandemic. OJP has awarded the funding in the amount of $45,881. Although the police department did apply for this grant, the funding can be used to outfit other city departments with any of the PPE or N95 mask technology equipment, so forth, as well as salaries and expenses related to the COVID-19 pandemic. We continue to incur expenses on this. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My computer is acting up, sorry. We continue to incur expenses, and so we're asking that you consider alternatives. One, approve the funding award through the BJA program. This is 100% funded by the program with no match required by the city.
Are there any questions or comments? If not, I'm going to go ahead and open for a motion on this one.
This is Commissioner Euler. I move to approve the funding awarded through the BJA program.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Ortiz, I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Again, we'll go through the roll call. Commissioner Ortiz,
Aye.
Commissioner Euler,
Aye.
Commissioner Dick,
Aye.
Commissioner Cessna,
Aye.
Mayor Unruh, aye. Thank you so much, Chief, for your forethought to do this and get that taken care of. And yeah, that's a nice opportunity for lots of departments, including your own. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor and Commissioners, it's approximately 1:30. I'll go ahead and jump to that point on the agenda. Bear with me. Okay, then just for the sake of those with an agenda in front of them, this is item 11A. The governing body is asked to consider and select an electric service provider for newly annexed property. And I'll invite Public Utilities Director Mike Muirhead to speak.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Mike Muirhead, Public Utilities Director. I assume you can hear me?
Yes, we can, Mike. Thank you.
Okay. What we're going to do first here is I got a few things I want to say, and then I'm going to read part of this. And then we have a representative, Mr. Jim McVeigh from Wheatland Electric, who will, you will provide him the opportunity to go through their portion of the information they want to provide to you. And then after he's finished, then I'll go back through our information, and then that will be the end of it. However, I do want to say, just as we start out here, as the state statute requires that when another piece of property is annexed and the current retail provider chooses to come back and ask for a franchise agreement, that we go through the 11 factors that you do to determine both sides, and that helps you in determining which provider would be selected at the end of the day. After we present all of our information to you today, we're not asking for a decision to be made today, but rather take this under consideration. And if there's other factors that you would want to have us bring up at some time, and then we'll come back at a later date, probably the first or second meeting in June, and ask then for some sort of answer at that time. So with that, I'll start in. It's kind of lengthy, so bear with us here. The governing body at its April 21st, 2020 meeting was asked to consider selecting an electrical provider for the two annexed properties. The two properties are one, the 58.2 acres Sunset Estates, which is located next to the Sunset Memorial Cemetery. It's by Highway 50 and Towns Road. And the second one was about 10.27 acres of property in the vicinity of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad and Mansfield Road. The Wheatland Electric Cooperative, who had notified the city on April 8th, 2020 that they were not interested in requesting or negotiating with the city in obtaining a franchise agreement to serve the two properties. However, after city staff presented its opinion of the factors at the city commission meeting agenda, that information was in the packet, and it stated with letter B, the rates of various suppliers. And then as a quotation in there, it says, as directed by KSA 66-1,176, there will be an 8.5% of the gross revenues of total retail sales attributed to new customers in this area added to the utility bill for 10 years. This 8.5% of gross revenues will be paid to the Wheatland Electric Cooperative for bare ground compensation. Wheatland notified the city that they would now like to request consideration of that franchise to serve the two properties. City staff suggested at the governing body at its last meeting that you do not make a selection of this, and rather we waited an additional 15 days. We gave Wheatland 15 more days to submit any other information they would like you to consider. So Wheatland did provide additional information on April 30th, which is included in this memo for the governing body to consider. This information includes Wheatland's opinion of the 11 factors to be considered and proposes a 15-year franchise agreement with a 3.75% franchise fee paid to the city. The city currently assesses 5% franchise fee to all utilities operating within the city. In Wheatland's information, they also assume that the city will directly charge the new customers the 8.5% of gross revenues collected from those annexed properties. And if that would be the case, then Wheatland's rates would be less than that of the city's rate. However, the governing body has not made any decision on how or whether it would recover the 8.5% bare ground compensation to Wheatland Electric when new areas request to be annexed and become part of the Garden City community. So kind of back up here, the governing body recently annexed those two properties, as I described earlier. Both properties were within the certified territory of the current retail electric supplier, was Wheatland Electric. And based upon KSA 66-1,176, the city shall negotiate with the retail electric supplier, in this case Wheatland Electric, for a franchise agreement and timely and ultimately determine who will be providing electric power to these properties. However, when making the decision, the city shall consider these certain factors as outlined in KSA 66-176. And then this information that follows is the information that was provided by Wheatland Electric. So at this time, if Jim or the Wheatland representative is there, I would turn this over to you at this time.
Thank you, Mike. Are they on?
Yep, Jim, we can hear you. There is an echo, I'll let you know in the.
Can you hear me and see me?
Yes, we can.
Maybe it's a a little better now? We turned the air conditioning off. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you so much. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Again, my name is Jim McVeigh. I'm General Counsel at Wholesale Electric. I want to kind of, mainly we're going to talk about rates and the things that are in the report of Garden City. I'm assuming you all can read our report. I don't need to go through and rehash that. It stands for our position on this. But we are going to talk a little bit about what the city submitted, only because it was submitted after hours on the date that these were all due. And it's mainly going to talk about rates as well as the duplication of facilities. But before we get started, I do want to point out that while it is true that Wheeling did communicate with you all, that we were not requesting a franchise, in those conversations with Garden City's officials, I made it real clear that our position is, if the 8.5% is going to be charged to the customer, Wheeling wanted to negotiate a franchise in every scenario, in every case, because we believe that under that scenario, Wheeling would forego the 8.5% compensation for the annexation in exchange for the right to simply serve under our tariff. We're very confident. As a matter of fact, now we know that, in fact, Wheeling's rates would be substantially lower if it is going to be billed to that customer. And we think, frankly, our rates are lower even head to head. And so when you throw in the 8.5%, it's a significant increase on that particular customer that we think that would be in the public interest to allow Wheeling to serve. The other thing we'll talk about is the facilities that we already have in place there that are already ready to serve, and in fact are already serving a similar housing district subdivision immediately south of this location with those facilities, and therefore would be no build out. There would be no additional cost that would have to go to ratepayers, unlike Garden City. So I want to start out with just the factors, however, that Garden City raises. And if you look in Garden City's submission under subsection B, where it talks about rates of suppliers, I want to clear up a couple things. First, it says, it should also be noted that there are no differential in summer or winter rates, nor is there any energy cost adjustment, ECA, or power cost adjustment added to the city's utility bill. In my opinion, that should say, or subtracted from this city's utility bill, because here's why. An ECA or a power cost adjustment may be higher than what they expected under their cost of service estimates. And so therefore it would be a cost to the consumer. If it is lower, the power cost that the city get, it may be actually less than what your cost of service. And that's what's been happening with Wheeling for about 2 years now. Our power bills have gone down so much from our wholesale provider that our ECA has been a negative number. And in fact, when we did our recent cost of service study, when we realigned our rates for a revenue neutral adjustment here this last month, they've been so much lower, and we've been having to do a credit on the bills for so much, we brought it up to tried to get it to a baseline that there would be no power cost adjustment. We did not have that number for you in the document I presented. However, last Friday we got it, and I immediately presented it to Mr. Muirhead and Randy. And once again, the power cost adjustment is actually a negative number. Wheeling will subtract that and has subtracted that from our what we bill our customers, our members. And in fact, when I saw that in the Garden City's presentation, I went back and I got Garden City's bill. That you have meters with Wheeling where we actually have even credited as much as $300 in a meter out of your 12 meters you with. Some of them as much as $100. So our ECA piece, power cost adjustment is subtracted from the bill, and that's exactly what we would do here. And I'm going to talk about that subtraction because I gave you all the same number when I go through these scenarios later on in my discussion. It's going to show that our rates are even lower because the power cost adjustment. The other thing I wanted to point out is Garden City mentions, and I'll read it verbatim again. However, in the Wheeland schedule 20D residential tariff, there is a scheduled $3 increase in May 2021, another $3 increase in May 22. Also, the Wheeland schedule residential tariff talks about how we do make that change for the power cost adjustment. And I will say that Garden City did attach our tariff. And you have that on page 13 of your PDF. That tariff does show specifically those service availability charges. They do go up during that period of time. They're absolutely correct. But one thing they left off is if you look under the energy charge per kWh, notice that it goes down for those 3 years. Wheeland did a revenue neutral cost of service study so that we could increase the service availability charge so that we're not as manipulated as to weather changes and having a warm summer or a cold winter. And so we didn't have to collect so much from our energy charge. The energy charge goes down to, as you can see, 0.0964. This actually, if you will, is a revenue neutral and is no increase whatsoever in our overall rates to our customers. That was the purpose of the cost of service study, was do a rate adjustment, not a rate increase. And in fact, the increase in the service availability charge is just as equal to the decrease in the kilowatt hours that we have. So there would be no increase, if you will, to the customers over those 3-year period of time. The other things I want to address in the Garden City submission is under factor D. Under factor D, it talks about that eventually after this franchise, if we're granted a franchise, goes away, that eventually, quote, the lower cost per customer would occur eventually. And I was surprised by that. I don't think that's what the evidence shows that's being submitted to you all. And I'm just going to use Garden City's numbers so you have full faith and trust in them. If you would look on page 7 of your PDF, that is a submission from Garden City. That submission is, we think that there's a better way to analogize this, but what it does is show that even on a head-to-head, when you strip out the 8.5% and the franchise fee of 5% that Garden City is claiming in this document, when you strip those out, Wheeland's rate, even in a head-to-head match, is actually lower than the city's rates. If you look at this, and we only did an analysis of 750 megawatt, 1,000 megawatt, and 1,500 megawatt because of the average size of the homes around 900 megawatts. Ours is around 850. So when you look at that, look over on the right-hand side for Wheeland's charges. And if you subtract out the $5.04 under 750 megawatts, then Wheeland's actual total rate head-to-head is $102.21. In other words, it's more than $2 cheaper for that customer to have Wheeland serve it head-to-head with Garden City. Now, what we don't have here is you notice that when they did this, the power cost adjustment was unknown. Well, the power cost adjustment for May, if that customer was being served by Wheeland, they would have had a $3.01 credit to their bill. So Wheeland's actual bill for that customer is $5.03 cheaper for a 750 megawatt home.
And this is Mayor Jim. This is Mayor Unruh. So is that figure shown anywhere on these graphs or anywhere? I'm looking for that adjustment.
I'm sorry, well, it's not in there because it was submitted after the deadline
Okay.
that the city gave us to show the power cost
Okay, can you
adjustment.
state that amount? Could you state that amount again? I'm sorry, I didn't write it down.
Yeah, the power cost adjustment for a 750 megawatt house was $3.01. If you strip out the 5% franchise fee, because we're assuming again a head-to-head now after the franchise is over with, not, as you see on the Garden City side, there's no charge for the Wheatland compensation for annexation. This is just a pure head-to-head evaluation. Strip out the $5.04 for the 5% franchise fee. Wheatland is about $2 lower. But when you add the power cost adjustment, it's another $3.01. Wheatland's rates are lower head-to-head. It's actually more higher for each one of the other two, for a 1,000 kilowatt home and a 1,500 kilowatt home. And I'll just jump to the 1,500 kilowatt home. If you back out the $8.97, once again, you can see Wheatland's rate is much lower. Well, the power cost adjustment that Wheatland subtracted from our customers this month for a house that size was $6.02. So the overall amount that we would save this customer just by using Wheatland in a head-to-head matchup with the city is $13.43. The evidence submitted by the city under Section D, there's simply no evidence for. They're claiming that eventually the lower cost per customer would occur after the annexation goes away. With the evidence that's submitted to this body today, and frankly, I think at any time, Wheatland's rates are going to be lower. And especially if the power cost adjustment continues to be lower, as we've seen over the last 2 years from our wholesale provider. However, the one I want to talk about most is, if you look at it, the exhibit that Wheatland has, page 11. The PDF, in your PDF, page 11 is Wheatland's Exhibit A. We think that this actually is the document that tells the story here, and that is what happens if you do not grant a franchise versus what happens if you do grant the franchise. What happens if you don't? What happens if you do? On the left side is if you don't grant a franchise. Those are the same numbers that Garden City has in their graph also. Only it adds the 8.5% compensation for taking our certified service territory, that $8.67. That's where you get the $113.38. That's for a 750 megawatt home. When you jump over to the other side, now we only calculated the 3.75% franchise because of our, I think, 40 franchise cities. We averaged what the franchises are. They're not 5% to 3.75, and that's where we got our numbers. We didn't see Garden City's submission where they said that they always get a 5% on a franchise till afterwards, after this was submitted. So I'm going to go with the number that we put in there first, and then I'll talk about what the 5% is. When you add, again, by subtracting out the power cost for May, it's $3.01, and you put it all together, if you grant the franchise, the difference here is $8.89 a month. Even if you add the 5% franchise, which is a $5.04 instead of the $3.69 for the 750 megawatt home, again, even then, it's still a $6.13 lower to have Wheatland serve that customer. I'm going to go now to the 15 megawatt house, and it actually is much higher. The final numbers are literally $20.03 in just 1 month bill. Even if with the 5% franchise, it's $14.50 cheaper to have Wheatland serve these customers. When you annualize these, we're talking real money here to these folks. And we do not believe that these folks would voluntarily say, we would serve if they saw these numbers. Now, I know that the Garden City submission says that the person who owns the development wants to have the city serve. We want to know if he saw these numbers. We want to know if these individuals buying those houses have seen these numbers. We don't think that it makes any sense that in fact they would choose a different supplier than Wheatland. The other point I want to point out here is under several of the factors that the government, the statute wants you to look at is whether or not you have to build facilities, whether or not you have to duplicate facilities, whether or not adding facilities to the landscape makes any sense. There are three factors. I kind of roll them all into one because of my time constraints here. But it's under G of Garden City's submission. Under G of their submission, Garden City acknowledges that they have to construct a, quote, small extension to get the property. But what's not in this submission is the evidence. How much is that going to cost? Who do they have to, who's going to pay for that? Are these people going to pay for it? Is the development going to pay for it? None of that information is provided for a record to determine whether or not you're going to make the decision this is in the best interest of the community, best interest of these folks. What we submitted was records to show we're already there. We're already serving. We have one line there now. It's a 12.5 3-phase that tap right in, but we're building, as you know, under the asset purchase agreement with Garden City, we're building a 115 facility very nearby that this development would even be served by 115 eventually. So again, I don't think that when you look at the rates, when you look at the fact that you're violating several of these factors by having to build 3 different facilities in this area just to serve this subdivision, that we think this is in the public interest. I have no further comments. Mayor, Unruh, thank you for your time. Commissioners, thank you for your time.
Jim, thank you so much. Any questions for Mr. McVeigh at all or clarifications?
Mayor, this is City Attorney Grissel.
Okay.
Jim, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It appears that the city's presentation of evidence today relates to 2 different annexations. There were 2 different tracts that have been annexed. One owned by East Cambridge LLC and the other owned by Empirical Foods, Inc. Your presentation appears to address the annexation involving the East Cambridge LLC parcel. Would be furnished any evidence, any presentation that you might make to the governing body would be the same as it might relate to that Empirical Foods Inc. tract as well?
Actually, Randy, what I submitted made it clear that the only request for franchise is for the sunset tariff, the 2852-2019 ordinance.
Okay,
that's the only franchise we're requesting.
So as far as the other annexation that has taken place, Wheatland is not interested in a franchise for that tract.
That's correct, because frankly, that tract is built to where you can see there's probably not going to be any customers in that little sliver and that could potentially get billed 8.5% for. So it just didn't make any sense. Again, our argument, our belief is we will be glad to forego 8.5% compensation if we get to serve. And frankly, as you can see by my proposal, we're actually asking to make less by serving. The 8.5% is actually more than we are at least proposing.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Mayor, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. So Mike, again, I know that any other questions for Mr. McVeigh at all or clarifications?
No, I don't have any questions for Jim. What I will do, Mayor, if it's okay, if there's nothing else for Mr. McVeigh, then I will quickly try to address the rates issue and that extension issue. And then I will not read all of this. You've had it before. I will highlight a couple of areas that I think need to be highlighted, and then we will finish if that's okay with you. So,
yes, thank you.
Sure. The first part of on the residential rates part, what we will do is we'll come back and show you what Mr. McVeigh presented. We'll show you what the city presented in a spreadsheet that shows exactly what he's talking about and exactly what we're talking about. So there will be no confusion on that as to whether the rates are higher or lower, if there's a franchise fee included or not, if there's an ECA charge or not. On the ECA charge, we don't have an ECA or a PCA charge. We eliminated that in 2013 when we changed wholesale power providers at that time. We have not charged any ECA or PCA since that time. So one question I think would probably come back to Jim is, what has it been for the last 4 or 5 years? Is it an increase, or is it a benefit to the customer? You know, along there, that would be something to know as well. I put in there under rates as well, that the city absorbs the cost for street lighting in subdivisions, all resident in the entire city. I don't know if Wheatland would be covering that cost or not. If they absorb that cost, that's something for them to explain. And then also any residential development that occurs within the city, all of the underground facilities inside the development are installed at Garden City's cost. There is no charge to the developer for that. And somewhere along the way, I don't know, you know, there again, Wheatland can answer that question, if they would charge for those facilities, and if so, does that go back to the developer, who then in turn passes it to the property buyer who, you know, who builds the house? That'd be something we'd want to clear up there. Under number G, that Mr. McVeigh talked about avoiding wasteful duplication of facilities. It's like well, we already have planned part of that extension, so I'll have to go back and calculate if it's 3 more poles that we would be extending to get to this particular subdivision for its riser, or not, but I certainly will get those numbers to you. And then there again, we talk about that underground extension into the subdivision. And I actually think, unless there's questions of me, I believe it covers what we wanted to cover for today, at least anyway. Like I said, we will go back and make the comparisons from Mr. McVeigh's. We'll share all that back and forth so that we're both in agreement that what their stuff is correct and our stuff is we think is correct on our part. And we'll bring that back to the commission at the next meeting, if that's okay with everyone. I'll ask Jim if that's okay with him.
Absolutely. I think that's the fairest way to do it. I do have an answer for the developers agreement we have, but I have no problem with coming back at a later time.
So this is Mayor Andrew. So I want to make sure. So Jim, you said that you will be providing additional spreadsheets that weren't included in this, or with your ECA charges, or that basically the credits. Is that something you're submitted?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Well, we have something on. We have it in our packet, but So are you saying that this is not the information that you submitted, or that you're going to submit something different or additional information? That's what I was kind of.
I submitted something also on Friday that is an amendment to that Exhibit A that shows the power cost adjustment. But as I explained to Garden City's folks at the time, I understood that I didn't meet their deadline because we didn't get the ECA numbers until afterwards. But no, I will be submitting that document if I'm allowed to submit additional information. Also, obviously, the questions that Mike raised are good questions about our development agreement that we have with the developer and how we handle that. You want to know that, and we'll get that information to you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, Mike, your mic's not on.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
If there are other factors that you would like to consider in this whole thing, please pass that on to Randy or myself or Matt, and we'll make sure that they get forwarded to Wheatland as well as Garden City staff, and we will address those factors as well.
Mayor, this is Mayor City Attorney Grissel. It appears that both parties wish to submit some additional information. Mr. Muirhead with some additional analysis tables, and then a response by Wheatland and Mr. McVeigh. We're certainly in agreement with that, and that would be presented to you at the next meeting. Eventually, what I propose that needs to be done is that city staff will prepare proposed findings and conclusions with a recommended decision and/or a written document so that the governing body at some point can approve a written document and select the retail supplier to provide electric power to the annexed property. I think the statute requires a written finding and a written decision, and that's something that staff would prepare and submit to you for your consideration at a future meeting.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, we appreciate that. Any other questions for our city attorney or Mike Muirhead or Mr. McVeigh? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cut me out.
Mayor and Commissioners, the next item on the agenda is item 11B. And I need to get to that point on the agenda and share it. Item 11B, the governing body is asked to consider whether to open the big pool for the 2020 season in light of COVID-19 and the corresponding requirements of state and local health orders. And I'll invite Jennifer to present on this item.
Mayor and Commissioners, good afternoon. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, good. So I just want to point out for those that read this memo previous to at last meeting, and then in preparation of this meeting, I left the memo intact as we had it for the previous meeting. And then I added a little section into the memo that is called edited for the May 19th, 2020 meeting. And in that section is where I updated some of the information based on phone calls, based on information we received from the state, based on CDC regulations, all of the things that we thought would be necessary information going into this meeting. So I'm going to briefly cover that first, and then I'm going to add a few additional things that have come up since then. So attached to this memo, you'll also find a list of the cities of the first class in Kansas and how they intend to operate for the 2020 season. I know that doesn't necessarily make your decision one way or the other, but I did want to include that information as we usually use them as a reference in a lot of different decisions that we use. We have had conversations with all 62 of our potential employees, and those conversations did go well. Pretty much all of them are interested in working for the big pool if we intend to open. We do have one that wouldn't be able to begin work until entering phase 3 because of that's what her parents would wish. We had employees ask really great questions about how we would handle cleaning, disinfecting, social distancing, and all of the things that you all and myself have had questions about during this entire pre-planning period. And so I worked with HR Director Ali Medina to come up with what we might need for staffing, and how we might handle different stations throughout the facility to take care of those concerns. We believe that we would need approximately 9 additional employees working 7 days a week for approximately the 7 hours that we're open. We average that out at $10 per hour because we have new employees, guards, or concession attendants, or gate admissions attendants, and they make more around the $8.50, but then we have some lifeguards who make closer to the $14 or $15 an hour range, and on days that they would be cleaning, then it would cost us more. So averaging those out, we use the $10 per hour, and came to an additional expense of $4,410 per week for each week that we're open prior to phase 4. Phase 4, that could change. We don't know what that will look like. So we're just basing those numbers in phase 2 and phase 3. However, there would be a little bit of offset with that because, as you'll notice when we go a little bit further into this memo, there will be certain areas of the pool that are closed, and we will be able to alleviate 4 staff members from those locations, and we could potentially use that towards the cleaning. We will need additional supplies. But in working with Human Resource Director Medina, she was really unsure about how much or how we will utilize those. And so only a few weeks into the season will we be able to tell for sure what that will look like. We did find out that our staff that has already been certified and just needs recertified would be extended 120 days, which would cover our season. We would need to certify 9 new guards, and we have a plan in place in which we would hope to accomplish that during phase 2. I also have laid out some things that would be necessary precautions if we did open. The tower slides, which are the 3 large sides, the blue, the red, and the yellow, they would not open until we move to phase 4. The inflatable obstacle course would not open until we move to phase 4. The children's elephant slide, we would rope it off similar to what we've done in the playgrounds, and we would not use that until we move into phase 4. We would have the lifeguards and other staff enforce social distancing on the pool deck and in all of the pool areas other than when in the water, because it's impractical for a guard to enforce that in the water while they're also trying to lifeguard. And it's not recommended by Red Cross that we do that. Masks would be required by employees and patrons unless they were in the water until we move to phase 4. We would remove the 20-minute breaks that we currently have where all the guards come down and everyone flocks to the concession stand. We hope that that would reduce the crowds in general. The concession stand would be marked for social distancing with the 6-foot markers. Chairs and seating would be spread out to respect the social distancing. Diving board lines would be marked for social distancing. And we would have cleaners stationed, 1 in each bathroom, the concession seating area, diving board, deep inside area, splash park, baby pool, and then we would have 2 additional floaters. And they would clean between touches and uses of those areas. I did receive, oh, and I'm sorry, the last thing on there is one of the groups that I have worked with throughout this process has created a map that actually has been tracking all of the pool closures across the United States. But you can zoom in on Kansas and take a look at other cities that aren't included in cities of the first class if you'd like to look at that. So then I just want to jump in. I know that gives you some detail about how we would operate if we were to open and some of the expenses that we might run into. But I did receive a question yesterday to get more specific and kind of explain what this might look like from a facilities perspective and also from a staffing perspective. And so I just want to jump into that a little bit and talk to you in a little more detail. So first, how we would envision this going forward, if you all made a decision today to open this facility, it would take our staff approximately 3 weeks to get the facility up and running. There's significant sediment in the bottom of it. We would have to scoop all of that out. And Parks crew, Andy Liebelt and his guys would take care of that. They would power wash it, and then we would fill it with water. Once it was filled with water, we would need approximately a week worth of training with our lifeguards that we always do to get them ready for the season and get up and running. And so we believe that it would be difficult to open, even if we made it into phase 2 prior to June 15th. We think that's around the time we would be able to open if we did open and if we made it to phase 2, because obviously pools can't open until we get into phase 2. And then all of the things that I just got done talking to you about, all of the precautions and those things is what we would see in phase 2 and phase 3. And then phase 4, we would probably look, as we got closer to that, we would look and come back, or we would just kind of work with staff to see what things could be adapted going into phase 4. How I envision this working, because there is probably not a single person on my staff who is going to readily sign up to clean 7 days a week. And definitely not 9 of them that are going to sign up to do that. And so how we're going to do it is a rotation basis. Every single person, lifeguard, concession attendant, admissions person, is going to have to take a cleaning shift a week. We are going to keep them on cleaning, and whatever their duty is for that day, that is what they are going to do for that whole entire day. I don't want to mix saving lives and cleaning surfaces because I don't want to take the chance that somebody makes a mistake. So everyone will have 1 shift a week. The first thing that came to mind when I thought of this is, if that was me, I might not want to come to work on the day that I had the cleaning shift. One of the things that we would have to implement is that if someone missed their cleaning shift, they would pick up the next day or the next time that they work, they would take the cleaning shift, and someone who was guarding or concession stand or admissions on that day would then get to do whatever their normal job is. And if you miss more than 2, you go strictly to cleaning. And you no longer are a lifeguard or a concession or a admissions attendant, you become a cleaner. I know that seems really difficult, but this is a really important thing that we have to do if we're going to open, and it needs to be taken very seriously. We have had issues in the past with getting staff to do just basic cleaning when we were open. And so I know this is going to take a little bit more effort in order to make it happen. Myself and Carla are going to have to spend more time at the facility. We're going to need to do multiple daily check-ins and kind of showing up unannounced, probably on my part, in order to really ensure that we're doing this, and probably some tracking systems in order to check off and mark that we're doing all of the things that we should be doing. I also have the people that we normally order our uniforms from. They are offering a mask that is for lifeguards specifically. And so we will be using that mask if we open to, we will order that when we order their swimsuits, and they'll get 2 masks, just like they get 2 suits. And they'll need to wash those and take care of those. And we'll give them the proper protocol for handling both their masks. So in addition to that, we will ask patrons to provide their own masks. So when they come up to admissions, if they do not have their masks, then they won't be allowed to enter the facility. We are going to check their masks or see what kind of mask it is. We'll just, as long as they have one, they'll be able to come in. And I think that for the most part covers the specific question that I was being asked yesterday. And I hope that is a lot of detail that helps you guys really analyze this big issue that's before you. I know that it's a difficult one, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions because we have spent a lot of time thinking and planning for whatever decision it is that you all choose to make.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I have a question, and then we'll give commissioners a chance to make comments and make. I'd like to be able to make some comments before we call for a motion. So I don't want to rush the motion. I want to make sure to be able to make some comments. It is important to me. It's something that it's been part of my life for a long time, and this is not the goodbye I'd hoped for. So in thinking, I'm looking at the weeks. If phase 2 happens on the 6/15 or June 15th. So is it every 2 weeks, the phase, if everything goes as planned, every phase? So that would be on July 20th, phase 4 would actually be, and then we're closing on the 31st. We would close planned if we open on the 31st.
We're actually not set to close until August 9th.
Okay.
But as with everything during this process, I have tried really hard to not pick specific dates for when we might enter the phase. We had phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Now we have phase 1.5. I don't know that anyone's to say there won't be a 2.5 or a 3.5 or something else in between. And so I don't think it's good for staff to speculate on when we might get to a specific phase. I think the most important thing I can tell you is that if you make a decision to open the facility today, our staff will work hard to be ready by June 15th. Now, that's us being ready. That does not mean we will be in phase 2. If we are in phase 2, great, then we open. If we aren't in phase 2, then of course the facility would sit with water in it until, and we would take care of it until we got to phase 2. And then how long we remained in phase 2 and phase 3, obviously those are things I can't speculate either. It's just a moving target at this point.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Any questions? And then we're going to give everyone a chance to make some comments. Any questions from commissioners?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Euler. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a quick question about water quality and how you'll be able to ensure the consistency of that throughout the season.
Deb, I wish I could tell you that exactly. I mean, that's one of the things that we've discussed a lot. And one of the comments was made to me after the last meeting was that everyone should feel really safe because the pool is emptying the 2 million gallons every 8 to 10 days. But that's actually not accurate. We're losing 200,000 gallons a day, and math would tell you after 10 days, we've lost 2 million gallons of water, but that's not it's not uniform. Part of the reason that we're doing this new project is because our gutter systems don't work. And as many of you might be aware, last season we had an issue with the black algae in the bottom of the deep end. And the reason that we have that isn't because the pool's dirty. It isn't because we don't work really, really hard. I mean, I had guards last year using magic erasers on large sticks, cleaning that. It's just the circulation issue. It's the way that we push chlorine in and the way that the chlorine circulates throughout the facility. It's higher in some areas. If you were to measure at the edges of the pool, we can't let it get too hot, the number for the chlorine, but we've got to get it hot enough that we can push it to the center of the facility. And that's really what we ran into last year when we had the chlorinator issue. We were able to get that resolved, and, you know, we will work really, really hard to do our best with the facility, but you all are aware of the shortcomings of some of the filtration issues and some of the chlorination issues that we faced previously.
Commissioner Orley, do you have any other questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Commissioner Dick, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, actually, this is Shannon Dick. This was actually pretty close to what Deb was saying. What condition, now that we're getting closer, what condition does the pool look like it's in? I mean, last year we were talking about, do we even have a season? Not because of COVID issues, but just because of the actual physical nature of the facility. So how has that aged since that conversation?
Again, that's another question that's going to be hard to know until we, usually we find the issues on the day that we put water in the facility, because when you're putting water in the lines, that's when you're starting to see how the concrete's holding up. If you were just to walk around the facility right now, there's nothing that would give you any signs that we're going to run into anything major. That's the way it's been every single year that we've opened. We've never known until we put water in the facility what if the season be, this is awesome, we have nothing crazy that we have to worry about, or oh my gosh, the summer that there was a big crack in the one side. Once we put water in it, obviously we became aware of the issues. So we don't know. We won't know until we put water in it.
And then on your plan, I have a question. When you said the patrons have to bring a mask, are they being required to wear the mask at all times, or?
They are required to wear it at all times unless they are in the water. If they are in, they do not wear the mask. Same thing with the guards. If the guards were to jump in the water to save someone, we'll be talking and working through training about taking that mask off before they get into the water. And if a patron or a lifeguard is in the water, the mask can be removed. But if they're out of the water on a stand, they have to have on a mask.
So they would just put the mask on the side of the pool? Is that how that would transition from being outside the pool to inside?
You know, I think we would just have to take it on a case basis and see. You know, my thought might be that you know, if we have them laying on the side of the pool, that becomes kind of a problem. What if somebody picks up somebody else's mask and puts it on? It might just be something that we have people take them off and leave it with their stuff, and then you got to go straight to the water, or something like that. I mean, this is new territory for all of us, and we're going to do, I promise you, I'll spend as much time as necessary to be down there and try and alleviate any of these concerns. But we're doing something different. So we've got to take it day by day.
Thank you.
This is Mayor Unruh. I did ask to see if we could, and I mean, I'm not an engineer, and I don't play one on TV either. But I'd hope maybe we could fill up maybe half the pool, especially the half where it's the small end with the baby pool. Not understanding how the circulation or also the bulkhead that it actually needs that pressure on both sides. And I know, Jennifer, I know the answer that we kind of found out that doesn't work, but I thought that might open up part of the pool, a smaller pool, so that we could be a little bit more manageable, knowing that the deep end is the least used just because of the size of it. But I know that was not a possibility. And so unfortunately, we had to abandon that very quickly.
Yeah, Mayor, we appreciated that question. And that came, I'm sorry that I didn't touch on that. That did come after the last meeting. And we had actually had that discussion in previous years when there were issues in the deep end. And because of that bulkhead that runs, the concern is that it's just too much weight and not balanced with water in each side, and that we might have additional issues by doing that.
So I know a lot of us have done some out of the box thinking and working. And Jennifer, I just want to say thank you to you and everyone who's involved. This is a lot of information. And I mean, it's probably overkill for this decision. But I do want to give people a chance to, I want commissioners a chance or anyone else if there's, I wanted to check with Celine to see if there were any questions on Zoom or that had been emailed to her that we might be able to answer before we kind of make some comments before we call for a motion.
I have not received anything else other than the one I read at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay. So with that, if the commissioners would like to make a comment, I have some comments I want to make, but if you would like to make comments, I want to make sure and give some space for that. And then we'll call for a motion after each one had a chance.
This is Commissioner Ortiz. I've gotten some emails. I've talked to the community. I've kind of been going around, even talking to family and kids. And I don't know if, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I know last time I was having some feedback or issues, but I don't want to say this twice because it's kind of hard to repeat, but I don't want to rush into things, kind of like you, Mayor, on, making this decision where we really take our time and talk about everything that needs to be talked about. But some of the concerns that I have are, if we if we went ahead and opened, who's to say that we are going to infect or we're not going to infect anybody that we come in contact with? It's not that we're socially distancing each other. We need to more be physically distancing each other from each other and not spreading the, whatever this is. But I think just my concerns on, I'd rather see us go back to school. That would be one of my major plans to get things up and running again as far as a normality is, teachers that, have been working through different ways to contact kids and things. We can do that as well without a pool. But I think for next year, we probably ought to try to work through getting back on some of our normalities, with school being one of our main focuses. The pool is just something where I think it's going to be a lot more difficult than what we really think. I know we can say that we're sanitizing, we are taking precautions, we are using the right chemical formula, but I've been reading a lot of information. I've learned a lot more than what I didn't before all of this came out. So the differences between soaps and detergents and the natural oils from plants being in soaps. And so just reading some material safety data sheets on some things. It's not only when you clean a surface, you then have to sanitize. Well, then you have to clean the tools that you used, that you sanitized with the whole area with. So there's just a lot more steps, and, we can probably call Service Master and things like that, some of them that are professionals, and get their thoughts and things on how this process goes, even janitors at the hospital or whatever. But I do believe there's a lot more at risk for even, I don't expect anybody to clean like a hospital or, or to anybody's standards, but I think there's just a lot more precautions that we need to take in order to keep this pool and people safe. So I just have real big concerns about rushing into getting back into the pool and not just, temporarily for this summer, really think about what we need to do to eliminate this. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortiz.
This is Commissioner Euler. And, when I was looking through it, of course, I did a whole sheet on reward versus risk and looking at, what would the rewards be of opening it? And of course, obviously it's, to provide part-time seasonal jobs, to people, and there'd be fresh air and sunshine and activities and physical fitness and socialization. And all of the things that come with a pool and opening up the pool. And then as I was kind of on the opposite side of that, what are the risks involved with that? And of course, as with Commissioner Ortiz, I was thinking about the risk of spread. And, I know, Jennifer, I think you've done a wonderful job trying to figure out how to mitigate that risk and how to, working through the procedures of cleaning and working through the procedures of how do you enforce that if, somebody isn't doing it right. But then there's always that risk, of spreading it. And, some of the studies are showing that it's less on surfaces and more droplets and face-to-face contact. And so I think that's certainly something to think about. And then I also do think that there are some financial risks as well. I mean, knowing where we could be financially with the closure and stay-at-home orders and sales tax and just different things, that if there's a way to save some money, this might be the way to do it. And thinking through those extra costs and additional unbudgeted and unplanned costs and what those look like. And then of course, the other one is just the phases and thinking through, I mean, we're at 1.5 and as we all know, there, like Jennifer said, there could be a 2.5 or a 3.5. And so at what point do we know that we're going to even get to phase 2 or, get to a point where we can open the slides or open up some of those other attractions within the pool. And so I did appreciate Beth Coxell's letter reminding us that even if, whichever way that the vote goes, that, using some of those other facilities, the zoo, the parks, recreation, things like that, to provide some of those rewards. So for me, it's really a balance between is the reward worth the risk? And so that's kind of for me where it comes down to.
Thank you, Commissioner Euler. Commissioner Dick, Commissioner Cessna, do you have any comments? Or?
I do, but I'll let Commissioner Cessna go first since I've talked some already, if he has anything. And I can't see if he wants to say anything.
Go ahead, Commissioner Dick.
Okay. So one thing that as we're talking here at this commission meeting, it looks like the state of Kansas is going to go to a modified phase 2 early. I don't know. If go, it's just breaking news that's coming across my stuff here. But it looks like they'll go to a modified phase 2 at the end of this week, it looks like. But I think a lot of my thoughts are kind of along the same lines as what's been said before. So if you look at our testing numbers right now, it looks like we're got about in our community about 3.5% positive cases over the population. Even if you take a large number of asymptomatic cases that aren't getting tested but are positive, but it doesn't have a negative influence, we can maybe assume about 7% or about 1 of every 15 people that have it, and that's a lot. The other thing you have to think about is that's 14 out of 15 people that don't have it yet. So that's something we need to think about. Like I said before, this was already this difficult decision to be open this year, just because of all the other issues that didn't have to do with this. Like just having a season, we knew was already fiscally probably not the best choice. But it was about the emotion that's attached to the big pool and stuff like that. So that's another issue is like Commissioner Euler said is a financial burden overall. But my big thing as I'm thinking through this is we need our businesses to be open. We need our restaurants to be open. We need our industries to be open. To keep those open, we have to prevent spread in other places that don't have to be open. And when we're talking about what we can do to protect our businesses and our industry and our population in general is limit those other unnecessary risks. And while the big pool is a recreation piece, that's one of those places where do we really need to have that place of exposure at the risk of having to take a step back and close down? We really don't want to do that. We don't want to aid in that sort of thing. So to keep our businesses open, to keep our industries open, it makes sense to make some limitations other places where already that decision was a very difficult one. And like Commissioner Euler said, we're in a position where we're kind of looking where maybe we can make some money savings. This looks like one of those kind of obvious places where even if everything, we go through phase one, where we're phase 1.5 or whatever, we go through phase 2, we go through phase 3, we go through phase 4, that's all fine. We put the water in the pool, something breaks, and we don't have a season anyway. So to me, there's just more and more mounting evidence that this isn't the wise decision to do right now. I would love to have the last year as a send-off. And I mean, that is the plan, or was the plan going into this, but there's so many signs pointing at no. I mean, so that's kind of where I'm at. So I'll pass it off to somebody else.
Mayor, I know that you had kind of asked, and we talked too about just breaking off or maybe opening up a piece. Was the splash pad talked about too on just opening that part? Could it be?
So we can actually, Commissioner Ortiz, we can actually, if we open the splash park, we have to put water in the baby pool. We wouldn't necessarily have to open the gate to the baby pool, because we did fix it so that you could go into the splash park without having to go into the facility. So you have that. We did talk about what it would look like if you opened the baby pool and the splash park, and you would still need to take into consideration all the other things that we talked about. If you did just the splash park, knowing that, hey, we're going to have water in the baby pool, but no one's going to access it. And people could just, I think you would still need to, I think we would need to hire some people to clean some staff to clean the pieces of the splash park in order to keep that, and the benches and things like that are inside there. I mean, I still think we would want to take some precautions if we did that, but it is possible that we could do that.
So Commissioner Sesson, do you want to make comments, or I can make comments too? It's whatever you.
Go ahead, Mayor.
So, if this was a financial decision, it would be very easy. And I mean, when I first got on the commission, I never realized, when I first saw the first bill for chemical, I was, Jennifer can attest to that. I was like, are you kidding me? I thought it was for the whole season, but it was just for a month. So, and I appreciate, this is not a financial decision for me. It's a hard decision. I mean, I grew up here in Garden City. This is a huge part of my life. I used to walk from my home on Janice Lane up there without shoes, which is dumb, but walk all the way to the big pool, and we would swim all day and come home. The last 4 seasons, I've had the privilege of working at the big pool. The first season I worked with 3 of my daughters. Second season I worked with 2 of my daughters, and then last season it was just me. But I'll tell you, I love the staff of the big pool. I love the lifeguards, the slide attendants, the gatehouse, the concession stand. So it really was, when it was really a decision, really about these relationships, and I really appreciate the relationships. So, it's like a family down there. If you've never, that's a big family, and so part of my angst on this has been really hard, but I want to protect my family. We have done some pretty dramatic things to protect our physical family, and I want to make sure and protect that family there also. This is not the goodbye to the big pool. I imagined lots of fun stuff and all kinds of, probably too much, but just some really neat opportunities at the big pool and in the big pool complex, and really saying goodbye. Because I know when history is gone, I mean, it's gone. There's not a way to bring back the big pool. Although I do hope as we demolish it after, when we make a decision, I would like to keep chunks of it. And I remember I got a piece of the Berlin Wall from a friend of mine who went to Germany, and it's one of my prized possessions just because it represented history and a memory. So I want to make sure and put that in there before I forget. So these are the kind of things that keep me up at night. I got up early this morning, couldn't sleep, and I finally come to terms with, really it's a safety and an issue to really, I want to take care of our family and our Garden City family. And I think you've all made very thoughtful very thoughtful comments, especially about, we really do need other things open. There are lots of really great things going on in Garden City. I would love to see our zoo open and our parks open. And I don't know that all of the things that was laid out, and again, and I feel bad about asking for additional information, and Jennifer's been gracious to say, okay, this is what it looks like, this is what it looks like, and then really talking us through. And I know as a lifeguard, it's a big responsibility already, and then having to mask and then diving in. I mean, there's a lot of things that have happened. So I want to make sure that for me, it's really a safety issue. It's a hard issue too. I mean, if we don't open, I would love to see us find a time where people can come and say goodbye. I mean, I've picked up with gloves over every single inch of that, all kinds of stuff that people throw on the ground, and I didn't want to go there. One time I thought it was a bug, but it was actually gum. So you think about, all the way around, and that whole thing to me holds a lot of meaning. But that's why it's so hard to really make this decision. And I know we kind of pushed it down the road. I wanted to kind of make the decision last week so that we could tell the people if we decide to open, they'd have a job if they didn't. But to my family of pools, and I'll tell you, the comments I've received from the public have been so honoring and so gracious, and really just information with their opinion. The public has done an incredible job, including Beth Coastal's letter today. No malice, so just say, these are the things that we want you to consider when making this decision. I know being on the commission, we made hard decisions, and this is a really hard one for me because it really tugs at my heart. But as far as my consideration is, I want to protect my family, my pool family, the big pool family, and also our families here in Garden City. So yeah, for me, it's really this idea of safety, and I don't think it's going to be possible to really do enough in order to make sure that we can ensure their safety. And that's what I'm concerned about. So Commissioner Sesson, the last words before we make a motion.
Yeah, I understand safety. I also see, from my perspective, our kids have been in pretty much quarantine for the last 3 months of school. Trying to see, there's a number of things. Last year for the pool itself, as we know it, after, iconic history in our community, jobs for our kids in the community, gives a place for our community to go. But I understand the safety part, but I also understand that, there's responsibility on individuals' parts to be safe as well. So that's where I'm tracking is, if we can open it up and be safe, Jennifer's put a lot of thought process into the cleaning of the areas. We're going to follow the protocols. Again, it depends on, where the state as well as the local officials go with us moving through this whole phase. We were in phase 1, and then the governor came up with phase 1.5, and hopefully now we're at as Commissioner Dick said, a modified 2. So it just depends on where we're at on that. But, it's one of those things where having our kids and families get to go to a place to enjoy, it's outside, like Commissioner Euler was saying, I went through the whole process myself. It's something where they can go outside, be together, and it's an attraction though. Again, it's, if you don't feel it's safe, then don't go. It takes personal responsibility as well from my perspective. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Any comments or any other questions before we call for a motion? Okay, so with that, I would move that we do not open the big pool complex for the 2020 season. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Euler. I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded. So any further discussion before we call for a vote? So again, so we're going to go down the roll call. Commissioner Ortiz.
Aye.
Commissioner Euler,
Aye.
Commissioner Dick,
Aye.
Commissioner Cessna,
Nay.
Mayor Unruh, aye. Thank you so much for your time and attention and all of the work that's went into this decision. Like I said, it was a hard one. So with that, I would like Matt to take about a 10-minute break for me. I probably need a break before we continue so we can kind of put this on the shelf and then we can move forward. So with that, I'd like to recess the commission for 10 minutes if that's possible
Okay,
and come back.
We'll rejoin at 2:50.
All right, thank you. Okay, it's 2:50 and we're back. So with the commission meeting, and I know we're down in new business, Matt, and I think it was item B we're ready for.
Yes, Mayor, I think that's correct. Item 12B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a waiver to the Code of Ordinance Section 6212 to allow for the discharge of consumer fireworks within the city limits of Garden City. And I'll invite Chief Utes and Chief Beatty. Sorry about that. Will present.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, Manager Allen. We're asking for the annual waiver to allow for the discharge of fireworks inside the city limits. You can see the report from the last several years of the incidents there were during fireworks season on the report that was submitted, and we're ready to proceed forward otherwise.
So just to note, I had received phone calls about some people, again, knowing that this is a hard time, especially people with animals. And then I had a veteran also contact me and explain to him that this does cause him some stress also. So, but knowing that, I did check in with the county if they'd made the decision yet, and they have been so busy with other things that they have not. But I know that our decision does not determine theirs. And then, so I checked with City Manager Matt Allen. And so really, we are just approving that they can discharge them in the city. Any questions or comments on this one for Chief Beatty? Or
Mayor and Commissioners, I'd just highlight your alternatives would be to approve the waiver from June 27th to July 5th. The reason those dates are chosen is they mirror what the state of Kansas allows for the discharge of fire, or for the sale of fireworks and the discharge of fireworks. Last year we provided an option with a shortened time period, only 3 days, July 3rd through July 5th. The sale of them could still happen throughout June 7th through July 5th. But the discharge inside the city limits would be July 3rd through July 5th. Could be an option. Any variation of dates, as long as you didn't extend earlier than June 7th or later than July 5th, would be appropriate. Our recommendation over the years is the 10:30 p.m. While that may still be late for many people, the reality is that fireworks are going to be discharged once it's dark, and that leaves about 30 to 45 minutes of late dusk into darkness. The police department and fire department have historically done an excellent job of getting around to the neighborhoods and being proactive as best they can. Our experience over the last many years is that if the sale of those is occurring anywhere near, even if Finney County would decide to not sell fireworks, that doesn't prohibit someone that lives in the city of Garden City to go to Kearney County to purchase fireworks, or Haskell County, or Scott County, or Ford County, or another state to purchase fireworks. The availability of a fire suppression system and a water network, municipal water supply network that's pressurized, provides in Finney County, provides really the best chance at responding to a fire to be that which occurs inside the city limits. So it can be a tough time for pets. It can be a tough time for people that emotionally or psychologically have fireworks or loud noises trigger an adverse reaction. Folks that are trying to sleep, there's no doubt that this is a tough period. I think we would suggest it's going to occur regardless of what you choose. and that so the strategy developed over the last few years by the police department and fire department has really been an effort to try to control that as best as possible.
No, they've done an awesome job. Any questions or other comments? If not, we'll go ahead and we'll call for a motion.
This is Commissioner Ortiz, and I'll make the motion to approve a waiver for the ordinance 62-12 to allow the discharge of consumer fireworks within the city limits of Garden City during the days of June 27th through July 5th, 2020, from 10:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
It's Shannon, I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded. So again, a roll call. Commissioner Ortiz.
Aye.
Commissioner Euler.
Aye.
Commissioner Dick.
Aye.
Commissioner Cessna.
Aye.
Mayor Unruh, aye. So passes 5-0. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome, Mayor. The next item, 12C, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the destruction of specific fire department records from 2014 as provided for by the Kansas State Historical Society Department of Archives and section 2-742 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Garden City. And I believe, Glenn, is this this is also Chief Beatty. Chief, all you.
I'm back again, folks. Thank you. We're just doing some house cleaning here in the office, physical as well as just cleaning up old records. We've followed the rules as put forth and handed to us from CLIN to make sure we were in compliance. And we ask that you would approve us getting rid of those old records. Thank you.
Any questions on that for Chief Beatty? If not, we'll call for a motion.
It's Shannon, I move to approve and destroy the specific records from the 2014 from the Garden City Fire Departments as identified above.
Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Euler, I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded. So again, we'll call for a vote. Commissioner Ortiz.
Aye.
Commissioner Euler.
Aye.
Commissioner Dick.
Aye.
Commissioner Cessna.
Aye.
Mayor Unruh, aye. Thank you, Chief Beatty. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I appreciate it as well.
Mayor and Commissioners, the next item, 12D, also the two that follow, 12E and F, are the continuation of the Community Development Block Grant Loan program that we've been doing in response to COVID-19. As with previous agendas, there is really no action on item D. It's to give you the overview of where we're at in the program. The new applications, which would be the business items for you to consider, are E and F. And I will invite Finney County Economic Development Corporation Director Lana DePaul to present all of these items. Lana?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you, Lana.
Excellent. All right, you have before you two applications that have been qualified as meeting the 51% low to moderate income qualifications. The first application on listed on your agenda is Medina's Adventures, Inc. for $25,000 with 3 FTEs retained as a result of this loan. You have set the parameters that you would do these loans as 3-year terms, 0.5% interest only during the first year's payment. And we would recommend approval based on the same qualifications.
Thank you. So I have a question. So, I mean, I read through your memo. So after these two loans, if we approve these two loans, then the dollars we have currently, after that would only be $650 and we would have loaned out everything. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Yes, we have been really fortunate to get your funds out there and really get them in use by the businesses during this time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Any questions? Do we need to take these separate, Matt?
Yeah, E and F will be separate items. I might jump in on the question you just asked. This is a revolving loan fund, and it's a sizable enough revolving loan fund that, and there was some existing money that was out in advance of the COVID-19 money. So as money becomes available back to this fund, there may be an opportunity to do potentially another loan. We'll wait and see, but right now I believe Lana got the thumbs up that these applications can go over to the county as well for their consideration. So the county commission may be able to handle with their funds some of the overflow for businesses inside the city limits, which would be fantastic. But if we get to the point where we can loan out because of repayment back into this revolving loan fund, we'll let Lana know and see if there's some other applications waiting in the queue.
That is correct, Matt. And just to further comment on that, the county commission did take up their 3 applications yesterday, which they did approve. So yes, fortunately, we're able to use those funds within the corporate city limits now as well.
That's good that we can work together with the county. So that's very encouraging. Thank you. Any questions for Lana or for this? Okay. So do we want to move to the first loan application, Matt, item E, or?
Yeah, item E, the appropriate motion, if you want to move forward, is to approve the application from Medina Adventures, Inc. For a community development block grant loan in the amount of $25,000.
Any questions or discussion? If not, we'll call for a motion. Do we have a motion?
I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Ortiz. I'll move to approve an application from Medina Adventures for a community development block grant and a loan amount of $25,000.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
And Dick, I'll
I'll second that motion. Oh, sorry. I beat you this time, Shannon. So it's been moved and seconded. I'm going to go ahead and go through. Commissioner Ortiz?
Aye.
Commissioner Euler?
Aye.
Commissioner Dick?
Aye.
Mayor Unruh? Aye. Commissioner Cessna?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So that passes 5-0. We have our second item
Thank you,
F.
Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Yes, the last one is Pearl Sports Shop for $35,000, and that retains 4.75 full-time equivalencies.
Questions or discussion on this one? Nope.
Commissioner Scott makes the motion to approve the community development block grant loan in the amount of $35,000.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
And Dick, I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second from Commissioner Dick. All those in favor, we're going to go down. Commissioner Ortiz?
Aye.
Commissioner Euler?
Aye.
Commissioner Dick?
Aye.
Commissioner Cessna?
Aye.
Mayor Unruh, aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you, Lana, for the work and bringing these to our attention and getting those dollars out there. That's really going to do some.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor and Commissioners, the next item is item 12G. The governing body is asked to consider and approve 2 appointments to the Zoo Advisory Board. I'll invite Zoo Director Christy Newland to present this item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. We have 2 members of the Zoo Advisory Board who are finishing up their term. So we need 2 new ones. Both who are finishing their term are willing and eligible to stay on. We did have 2 others express interest a while ago, a few months back, in trying to reach the 2 new ones who applied. We were unable to reach them and confirm that they are still interested. So the Zoo Advisory Board and staff recommend that we renew the 2 who are currently on the Zoo Advisory Board.
So I love
motion to approve Donna Leitner and Blair Leving to a 2-year term on the Zoo Advisory Board.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Ortiz, a
I'll
second.
second.
Commissioner Ortiz seconded. So again, we're going to go down that, do a roll call. Commissioner Ortiz.
Aye.
Commissioner Euler.
Aye.
Commissioner Dick.
Aye.
Commissioner Cessna.
Aye.
Mayor Unruh. Aye. I love, Christy, thank you. I love Donna when she said, I love the zoo. That's, yeah, I do too. So thought that was really fun. Thank you so much for bringing them. And hopefully we can contact the other two in the future for when other opportunities come up.
We will keep at it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Mayor and Commissioners, the next item is item 12H. This is a review of the enterprise and support funds as part of your preparation of a 2021 city budget. The first fund that we will review is Fund 67, the Electric Capital Reserve, followed by the Electric Utility Account, then the Water and Wastewater Utility Account, Fund 80, their Repair and Replacement Fund 81, Water Maintenance Reserve 82, and Water Reuse Utility 84. So funds 67, 68, 80, 81, 82, and 84 will be presented today, and I'll invite our utilities staff, starting with Public Utilities Director Mike Muirhead, to begin going through these different funds and their line items. Mike?
Okay, thank you, Matt. Commissioners, Mike Muirhead, Public Utilities Director. I assume you can hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Matt.
Good deal. I know Melinda Hitz, the Finance Director, is also on the phone or online here. And if you would like, Melinda, you can walk through it, or I can just start out. It's whatever you'd like me to do. Sounds like I'll just start out.
Yep. Mike, it was my understanding that we were just going to transition. I think she's available if we need her, but
okay.
I think if you'll go through the.
Okay, very well. The sheet that's up now shows our electric reserve account and the total available in those accounts, 5.5 million. You can see in 21 it's the same amount. From 2020 it's 4.587,500. And that moves on up. Excuse me. The transfer to electric reserve, that is the amount where the commissioners authorized the dollars to go to the COVID relief credit. So in 2020, you can see that amount was only 187.5. And in the 2021 budget, we increased that. You authorized us to replenish that account by that amount over the next 4 years. So that's why there's an increase there. Any questions on that? Okay. If you want to go to the next page, Matt. This is the revenue sheet for the electric utility. One item I want to bring up is down where we reimburse developer, the account number 3201. In 2020, we have revised that by up to $1.2 million. The reason that's such a big increase is due to the Empirical project. We'll be buying significant equipment for their project, and they will reimburse us for that amount. Otherwise, the 200,000 is pretty close to what we do, 200,000 to 300,000. So there's the revenue page. We left the revenue, the main collections, basically flat at 31.5. Granted, we'll know more in a few months as to whether the revenues from the utilities are down because of the COVID issue or not. And if that's the case, we'll adjust it accordingly. One thing on the electric side, and the water side, is if no one is using it, then it's not produced and it's not purchased. So those numbers kind of balance each other out.
And also, Mike, jump in and just add that this Fund 68's revenue source, annual revenue source, is by comparison, you'll see $35,000 or close to $36,000 new revenue, not counting the budgeted cash balance. in relationship to the general fund of the city. The general fund of the city, the one that probably gets the most focus during the budget process. It's around $25 million for police, for fire, for roads, for parks, for Lee Richardson Zoo, for our funding of economic development initiatives, for our funding of Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Vision, the municipal band. I mean, all the, the kind of the arts program, the community grant, all that stuff bundled into one is $24 to $25 million. This annual electric operating budget is operating off of an annual revenue portfolio that's around $35 million. So sure. On a scale, again, we add together and we talk about this as a $120 million budget. Our general government services are less than a quarter of that. Our electric fund alone is over a quarter of that. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, very good, Matt. And just to point out too that for anybody that's listening in, the enterprise accounts like this electric account is totally run off the revenues it receives by the service that it provides. So it's it's the general fund doesn't have to support these either. So okay. If there's no, I'll just assume, Matt, when you change the page, we'll just go to the next. And if there's questions, feel free to jump in and ask at any time. My thought is I would highlight some of the bigger items, and if there's any questions, obviously just jump in.
Perfect.
Under I might mention the contractors account there at the top, 53 or 523702. That's used primarily where we use local contractors for most of the work to get Dick Construction is a big contractor for us, puts in all the conduits and cables. The pole replacement contractor, we have our CIP projects that utilize different contractors for that. So a lot of that's where that goes, that 850,000 in that account. Material distribution, you can see that's always a high item, around probably averages around $1 million a year. That's the material that's purchased to use in the upgrade of the distribution system or any minor expansion that may take place. Material substations, 6040.13. Same thing, you can see the 20 budget, the current budget that we're in is extremely high, higher, about $1 million higher than normal. And that's due to some of the work we're doing associated with the APA, that is asset purchase agreement, which I'll kind of touch on that maybe at the end on the debt service.
So Mike, is this 185? I'm looking at material or the traffic light, the 5530.04. Is that 185? Is that for the new one at Fleming and Spruce Street?
Yes, sir. That's what that was budgeted for.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on any of those large items?
And Mike, the 411 additions, so out of the different funds within Fund 68, additions would be characterized as those improvements or expansions to the system. They aren't necessarily the daily operations, which is why you don't see any personnel out of this line item. It's really just the materials or contracted services to repair or grow the system.
Yes, that's correct, Matt. Thank you. And then in this one, in 412 production, this is where you will start seeing employees coming into the picture. So there are no new positions being requested in the electric budget. You got the benefits that's calculated there, the health insurance, etc. Down below, under the contractual arrangements, we have the repair of buildings, repair equipment, those types of things. The biggest item in the entire budget is the Wholesale Electric, $14.9 million. You can see in the actual for 2019 was 14.6 million. We thought it might be a little bit higher than that, but it doesn't project to be. We have some contracts that roll off at the end of this year and some different ones that pick in January of 21. Therefore, we're projecting a lower wholesale power cost by about $300,000. It certainly adds up. And then the long-term debt below that, that 4,174,000, those two combined, excuse me, that covers the principal and interest payments on the Jamison Energy Center, which is about $2.8 million. And then the Dogwood payment and interest, principal and interest for our participation ownership in the Dogwood facility. I may just point out real quick that that total 14 million plus the 4 million in debt would make us around 18, 19 million dollars in total cost there. And in 2023, our bill was $23 million. Neither here nor there, but just a tidbit of information. Okay, Jamison Energy Center costs, that's the cost that we use to operate the Jamison Energy Center. We have to fix things over there from time to time, and it's expensive stuff. It's nothing's very cheap. The next page, we go into, you can see more staff there. Again, no new positions. Our health insurance benefits are there. Down below that, you can see where these are more of operating items, that environmental testing and environmental disposal costs. They're not big numbers, but those are, if we have transformers that have PCBs or anything like that that we have to dispose of, that's where that funding comes from. Tree trimming, the 5445 account, we budget right at about $50,000 a year. We have the community broke up into 6 sections. And every year we do a sections unless one area grows faster than another. And obviously in some of the brand new sections, we don't have that many trees to trim, so they don't spend very much time over there. That's kind of it there. There's no new equipment listed in the 2021 budget for electric. They have, the last couple of years have purchased several pieces of equipment, and my understanding they'll be doing just fine for some time.
Mike, the equipment that would come out of this 413 distribution, this would be bucket trucks, this would be fleet of pickups, response pickups, staff pickups, those types of things.
Yes, sir.
And the and there hasn't been any capital outlay in this line item for some time. It appears. Is this gonna hit at once? Are you involved in sort of a revolving capital replacement schedule that we've kind of tried to implement citywide? But this is a large operation, and with a reputation of always having the new shiny pieces of equipment. So it certainly seeing a whole row of zeros is counter to that.
Yes, and we do try to follow a vehicle replacement process based on miles, hours, usage, costs, etc. And if we can continue to run them, then we do. We have a few pieces of equipment that does show some age, but that's okay. They're still working and they're still cost effective.
Sure.
And we do have the shiny one, a couple of them too, that are the newer ones. But
well, one thing I might ask for, and then we might be able to show the commission prior to final adoption of this budget, is just to kind of show that fleet.
Yep.
Which fund they come out of, 412, 413, whatever. And just to kind of ensure that there isn't this 2022 or 2023 budget that might be looming where the entire fleet needs replaced all at once. So
yes, sir.
Yeah, just kind of mapping that out as an addendum to this, I think would be great.
I can certainly do that, and we'll present it so the commission can see that.
Thanks.
414 commercial. Here again is where we pay for, really it's pretty much standard stuff. The utility billing is paid out of here. Debit and bank card charges come out of here. Those types of things. The larger one there, that transferred office salaries, that's our portion of paying for the operations of City Hall. If there wasn't an electric utility, if you didn't have utilities, you wouldn't need billing clerks, you wouldn't need all of those types of things that go with that. So that's our portion of that. The costs of some of the buildings are in there as well, because we would be paying for that normally. Most of that. Then the consulting fees here towards the end in the sundry account. Between consulting fees and engineering and legal services, we do spend quite a bit of money for those things. The last several years have been associated with some of that is getting geared up for that asset purchase agreement. We had hire outside consultants to help us do some of that. We do engineering fees for, we have special electrical issues we need to outsource. Those types of things come from there.
Mike, the transfer out other funds 7045 around 1.5 1.6 million. I believe that's the 5% franchise fee that this utility pays to the City of Garden City General Fund, correct?
Yes, it is, Matt. Thank you for bringing that up.
So this is included then in a, when we do cost of service and keep our rates equal to 100% of our costs plus or minus 2% at any given point in time. That would need to be backed out of that base rate if we were to show the apples to apples or head to head or however it was characterized earlier in the meeting. Our rates include a 5% franchise fee in them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's absolutely. I appreciate you bringing that up, Matt.
Yeah, Mike, this is Mayor Andrew. So on the this is account 7051, and I was going to ask this before the meeting, and I didn't get a chance to. That, what is that total contractual commodities and capital outlay? I know that I see nothing in it for the last couple of years. Is it because you've reached a point that you're holding, or?
The part of that, Mayor, was with the consultants that we used for, like in 2019, it was 600,000. You can see that in the budget there. A big part of that was preparing for the asset purchase agreement and analyzing the materials and facilities we were buying from Wheatland. The years prior to that, a lot of that, Mayor, was going towards when we were looking to building our own transmission facilities, those types of things. So we really do foresee these numbers to levelize or actually go down lower, hopefully, in the coming years.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike, is this the 2019 legal services number? I would imagine that's an audited number and has to be correct, but
yeah,
I can't remember a year since 2013 where we've only spent $102 in the electric department for legal services.
I do believe that would be a typographical error there, Matt. It's probably closer to $102,000 at least.
So if this is a spreadsheet, that's going to produce a bad number at the bottom unless it's typed in as text. So we need to double check that. We need to double check that number.
Yes, sir, we will. Sorry about that. We had the system acquisition WEC in there with nothing in there. We didn't. What we did is when we did the asset purchase agreement, and it's on the next page with the bonds, our principal bond payments. We borrowed $16.5 million for this entire process. 11.5 went to Wheatland Electric. Will go to Wheatland Electric when we close on all the facilities, which is not scheduled until May of 21, a year from now. It's possible that some of the facilities ownership could transfer earlier, but we're not that far yet. So our plan is that we will close in May of 2021. $3 million of that dollars was paid to Sunflower Electric Corporation right up front when we signed the asset purchase agreement. That paid for a portion of the facilities improvements that we wanted done at their Sunflower station to accommodate this asset purchase agreement. And you can see where the total expenses and revenues, or total bond payment and interest, we've gone down from, in 2020, from 2.2 million to 1.9. That's resulting in the AMI system, our automated meter information system. The debt on that is paid off. But it does include the debt payment that comes with the $16 million from Sunflower. So it's pretty much a wash right there. Total expenses, 36.6, carryover of 2.5 million from 2020. And then the carryover is at the top of the budgets on that. So that, in a nutshell, is the electric utilities budget. And I'm certainly happy to answer any questions, or if you have them later, send them and I will answer them and get them to Matt that way.
Thanks, Mike. I think we're ready for Fund 80 now, which is a combined budget for the water and sewer department.
Yes, excuse me. And the water and sewer is a combined budget, like Matt just said. So all the revenue comes into one from both, and all the expenses come out, but we track it separately so we know what it costs each division to go from there. The actual revenue in sanitary sewer was 2.9 million in 2019 and 6.4 for water in 19. And we felt we were very conservative in carrying those numbers forward of 6.5 for water and 3 million in sanitary sewer. There are no increases planned or in the books or anywhere for sanitary sewer at the present time. The water revenue for water sold, we're in the third year of 5-year increase. There are 2 more increases to come in the water revenue side. That was passed, well, 3 years ago by the city commission. So the revenues will actually go up, assuming that the consumption would stay the same. Any question? I guess we do on there too. We have another big item, that reimbursed developer. We have 685,000 in there for 2020. That's also related to the empirical project. They'll be paying a portion of a large water main we'll be extending. Actually, it's coming almost all the way from the zoo over to Jenny Barker Road. Not just for that, but it also increases water and pressure and volume on the east side of the city. So they're paying for their share of that. Any questions on that? Okay. If not, the land purchase for $50,000, you might be curious what that is. We purchased land with the water well on it from Jarmers, which is basically north of campus in the bypass. This will be we have to pay them 2 more years. I'll be paid off in 2021. And that'll be the end of that. The largest item in water on this is the materials and mains. You can see we've increased the 2020 budget. That really is just a reflection of the annual payment we make to the utility service company. That's on the water tanks. We had that come in and redo all of our water tanks. If you remember, a few years ago, we had them all cleaned and repainted and the structures reinforced. We agreed to make those payments for a 5-year period. So that's why that is so high, $485,000 a year. And I believe in 2022 will be the last payment of that. And then we'll be good unless we would start something different.
So Mike, you might cover this, but I know early on in our agenda, and I didn't get a chance to ask, there was that wastewater collection system and treatment plant improvements. Will you make sure and just point out where those were at? I was trying to find them earlier, but I couldn't find them in
certainly, Mayor.
Bids for, so.
Certainly, what that is, Mayor, is in 2018, we did a bond when we actually bonded for the replacement of that 30-inch sewer main. And we included the improvements that needed to be done at the wastewater treatment plant. So the 30-inch main was completed. We still have funds in the bond account to cover for these expenses. Right now, I believe, and I don't know the exact number right off the top of my head, but I think there's like $2.2 million in that bond account still. The estimate for the wastewater plant improvements was probably around $700,000 of that 2.2, but we didn't get any bids. So, and Matt explained that very well, but that's where that money would come from, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll get you the exact number and send it over with the other information that I told Matt I would get.
Fund
Okay.
8312 is the sewer maintenance fund, Mike?
Yes, there again, there are no new positions being requested in water or wastewater this year. You can see the benefits line is there covering the costs of staffing. Down below that is our contractual obligations, association dues, repair sewer mains. Those are pretty much consistent across the board from year to year. We don't have a lot of change there. I don't know if it shows in the chemical line item, that 5512, if it goes back far enough, but one year we did purchase additional chemicals for the pool. That first year we took that over, and it's dropped back down to the normal operation. So any questions on that one? Maybe scroll down just a little bit, Matt. The manhole, we're contractual for manhole, $50,000. We do, it's based upon a linear foot of rehabilitation, but typically we get about 10 manholes reconditioned every year. A lot of the older manholes, you believe it or not, are out of brick. They're still made out of brick. They're still holding up very well and they work good, but we go in and we reseal them with a special sealant, and then we get another 10 to 20 years life out of that. So we keep that program.
Mike, is this also where we pay for the lifts for, let's say we've street sealed 7 times and there's now this, inch or 2 inch gap between the top of where the manhole is and where the surface of the roads become. I know we had a program going through and putting a lift in on those and repositioning. Is this included in that?
We do some of that out of here, Matt. We work with Public Works on a lot of those because some of those manholes are stormwater inlet manholes. But yeah, we work together with trying to get those raised up.
Sure.
Okay, you want to move on to the next one, which is the 313, the sewer plant. Here we have staff, the position of the staff, and we have the benefits that go with that. You might see the contract biosolids down below. That's a large item, $182,500. That's, we have to contract to get rid of the solids that come out of the wastewater treatment plant. And sometimes we have to pay to get that removed, and sometimes we get paid to have it removed, but nevertheless, that's what it costs us every year to dispose of those facilities. Going on down, I guess, under new equipment, perhaps you can see in 2020, we did budget $15,000, and that's for a new mower for the wastewater treatment plant. They're also taking over some of the mowing responsibilities for the right there in front of the Jamison Energy Center. The way they just mow it all at the same time, and we can save some few dollars there. Any questions on any of that? Okay. This one is water. This is 314 production. There again, we have staff and benefits listed there. The biggest item in the water budget is the purchase water account, the 5226, $1.7 million. This is the water that we purchase from Wheatland Electric that runs through their RO treatment plant. We, the city, provide 2 million gallons of water a day, and Wheatland Electric provides 1 million gallon of their water per day. It's run through the RO treatment plant at a fee, and then we take it. So we're obligated to pay for 3 million gallons of water a day every day, and that's where that 1.7 million comes from. Years back, we had purchased maybe more than that, so that number went up, and then we've got it settled right down to the 1.7 as required by contract. Utilities electric, that's another large one. That's $325,000. That's actually the energy costs that is paid to Wheatland Electric and the city of Garden City for operation of some wells and part of the wastewater treatment plant. New equipment, other. Oh, and there is the, yeah, never mind. Yeah, why don't you just back up real quick, Matt? Sorry. Under new equipment and other, we have $30,000 additional in the 2021 budget, and that's for the replacement of a pickup truck. The budget, the $50,000 in 2020, that's already been done. So, and that was it, Matt. Thank you. Uh, 315 distribution. There again, you have the staffing levels and their benefits. Most of this is just the normal operation of distribution system. You can see the numbers are pretty consistent across the board. Nothing, unless there's questions, nothing really out of line. Material water tower, we have $2,000 in there, and just in case we got to replace the lights up there, the ladder or some small thing there, but nothing major. Fire hydrants, they're expensive, and we do try to replace those as they fail. It's just an ongoing process. Under new equipment, other, here you can see that we're requesting $16,000 in the 2021 budget. $6,000 would be for it's a concrete braking tool that goes on the front of a Bobcat loader. It's a lot easier to maneuver at some places, and it's easier than putting the big one we have on the backhoe. We don't have to road the backhoe all the way down. And then the heavy duty mower is like a brush hog mower that will go on one of those little skid steer loaders as well. And it's nothing fancy. This thing will tear everything up. It's used for out in the sand hills where we have to mow around the water wells out there, where a lot of weeds and sagebrush and whatever else grows out there. So that's what that's about. This next portion here, this transfer office salaries, we transfer 6% of the gross revenues go into the general fund. This is for the water fund and the wastewater's fund of operating utility. So same thing, they pay their part of the utility billing, they pay part of all of the stuff that goes with the utility billing, that's that share. And then on the next page, you'll see where we pay that franchise fee as well. No other major big expenditures on this particular one, unless there's questions. Here again, the CCR annual reporting doesn't have anything to do with Creedence Clearwater Revival. That's the consumer confidence report for our water. That just recently was put out. Just seeing if you guys had a sense of humor this afternoon yet. Engineering fees, the big increase for 2021 is part of our share of the Bureau of Reclamation, the work that Burns and McDonald is doing us for there. That's where that's coming from. And then that transfer out other funds, that 7045, that's the 5% franchise fee that these two accounts pay into the general fund, just like the electric does, and just like Cox pays and the gas company pays. Any questions on any of that? And then here's the debt service. You can see that same thing. The water department had to pay for a portion of the AMI system when we financed that 10 years ago. That debt's coming off. So you can see the total payments for that's has reduced from 2.1 million down to 1.5 in the 2021 budget. And then that makes the carryover from 20 into 2021 of $3.5 million. So doing very well there. It's always exciting to see some of these debts paid down.
And Mike, you said the AMI system goes off in 2025, is that correct?
No, Mayor, that will go away at the end of 2020. And, yeah, so just the end of this year, we'll have that debt paid off, and that affects both the water, wastewater fund and electric fund.
Awesome, that's great, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions on that? If not, then Matt, I believe the next thing is just the replacement account, an update of that. You can, the previous couple of years, well, the previous years, say 3 years ago, we actually withdrew money from these accounts to help offset some costs in the water and wastewater budget before the rate adjustment took place. And now we're not taking any money out of there, but we do put that 155,000 back in there. So you can see that account is up to 520,000 at the end of 2021 and 365 at the end of 2020.
And Mike, this is a reserve count for the
Yes,
wastewater treatment plant itself.
Yes, sir. Any questions on any of that? Okay. The next one I think is the same one. This is under water. This is the water reserve. We transfer money into that same account. 1.5 million in there at the present time under the 2021 proposed budget. You know, they're large numbers in the utility side of things, but it seems like we can't do anything when it doesn't cost $100,000. So it's just a fact of life. Then I think, Matt, the last one is the water reuse utility. We're requesting $200,000 to put in that account. We really don't, the expenses will be $200,000. We really don't have a revenue source for this yet, but when, and we do believe it'll occur, you know, once we can get the water reuse utility established and going, whether it's through grants or through the Bureau, the work that we're trying to get through them, and then this will become a very active budget. And Mayor and Commissioners and Matt, that's what the water and wastewater and electric budgets. I'm more than happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Any questions for Mike? Or great presentation. That's, yeah, some really thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Again, out of all the budgeted expenses in the budget, which granted some of those expenses can end up being transfers or holding reserves, and so they aren't necessarily actual expenses that are likely to occur, or they're moving money from one fund to another fund that ultimately gets spent again, and so it shows up as two expenses and essentially double counts it. So there's part of our $120 million budget that's either a reserve or showing an expense twice because it moved out of one fund into another. But throwing all that aside, the series of funds that you just reviewed are in excess of $45 million in annual budgeted authority, and make up a bulk of what we do just in water, wastewater, electric, and down the road water reuse. Thanks, Mike, for going over that.
Thank you. Hi, Melinda.
Hey, Melinda.
Hi, everybody. Good job, Mike.
Thank you.
Really good.
Well, I think we are done with the budget, at least today's funds. Let me move my book. Near the end, I believe it's the consent agenda. There's 3 items on there. If you didn't want to pull one off to talk about it separately, the appropriate motion would be to approve I1 through 3.
We have a motion.
So I just had a question on the consent agenda number 1. It had listed in there for a separate motion on that one. Do we need to break that one out?
Okay, let's pull that one off. We'll talk about it separately. So the consent agenda would be I2 and 3. And then we can go back and take up I1.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda for items 2 and 3.
So it's been moved. Do we have a second? I'll second that. This is Mayor Unruh. So it's been moved and seconded. Again, we'll go through. Commissioner Ortiz.
Aye.
Commissioner Euler.
Aye.
Commissioner Dick.
Aye.
Commissioner Cessna.
Aye.
Mayor Unruh, aye. So those 2 items pass, and then we'll go back to the item 1.
And if, Seelana, if you'll get Rochelle on as a panelist so she can participate, that'd be great. Looks like she's on now. I'll invite Rochelle Powell, Airport Director, to present item I1.
Good afternoon, everybody, Mayor and Commissioners. I1 is basically the task order number 2 between the City of Garden City and HNTB for the construction development services of our AIP Project 43 that consists of the airfield remarking for runway 1735 and some additional runways, and then the moving of 2 signs as well.
Commissioner Cessna makes the motion to approve the as presented.
So we have a motion to approve as presented. Do we have a second on that?
Commissioner Ortiz, a second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Again, we'll go through and call the roll call.
Yeah, Mayor, just to,
yes,
if you don't mind, I just want to make sure Commissioner Ortiz's question got answered on the way I understood it. The question was whether there was 2 separate task orders or 1.
Well, it looked like it was for the alternatives, asking for approval for task order number 2 between the city and Garden City, or do not approve. So the recommendations were to approve order number 2.
Yeah, task order number 2, which
yes.
has been alternative 1. Okay, so I can, yeah. The staff recommendation was to approve alternative 1.
Right, and I think that's why he pulled it off to make a motion, so, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's what the motion was. Thanks for pointing that out. Yep.
Okay. So any further comments or questions on that one? Okay, Commissioner Ortiz?
Aye.
Commissioner Euler?
Aye.
Commissioner Dick?
Aye.
Commissioner Cessna?
Aye.
And Mayor Unruh, aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rochelle.
Thanks.
That concludes the business items for today's meeting, and I think we're ready for section 13, Mayor, and that's the commission reports.
Okay. So Commissioner Ortiz, you get a lead off today.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening in and turning your attention to what we had to discuss today. And I know there's been some hard things on the table that we probably, you know, we're just in the better concerns of everyone in the community. So with that, I would just like to point out that my sincere just heart goes out to everyone. I know one of the biggest issues was, you know, dealing with the pool and being able to have one last year. And I was on board when it first came up to keep it open for one last year, and just, you know, going through this, it's just a matter of a little bit more waiting. I know we can get through this as a community and together. So I just ask that you would all just share, you know, everyone's hearts and come together in this and just, you know, just do the best we can to help each other grow Garden City, to help keep us safe in Garden City, so that we can just look onto the positive things here to come. It might seem like a long time, and I know it probably already has, but I'd like to just stress the fact that my heart is with everyone on this, and it was a tough decision. So I just appreciate you guys' understanding on it. And I think with that, everything else is kind of going. But that's just, for me, it's just one thing to get past, and it'll take me a little while, but I'm sure I'll get through it with your support and you with mine. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortiz. Commissioner Euler.
Yeah, I agree with everything Commissioner Ortiz just said. It's a tough decision. And I know I would think I was up at like 4 o'clock this morning, weighing all of the different options and coming up with different scenarios and what it could look like. And, you know, and I appreciate, and I just wanted to publicly acknowledge everything that Jennifer and Ali Medina and all of those who put forth the effort, Matt, who gave us a really good plan if the vote would have gone a different way. And I appreciate the fact that they thought through everything and coming out with additional facts, and that really did help as far as making a decision. It's tough, but at the same time, we make those decisions based on the information that we have, and we make it for an entire community, and that does add a whole other weight to it. And so it was hard, but I just want to kind of echo again. I love what economic development and what they put on your Facebook page, that grace and space, and I think that is really kind of what we need in our community right now. Is we're not always going to make decisions that people agree with, but we make decisions with facts and with our hearts, and we have to make those tough choices. And we just hope that if you disagree, that's fine. But if you give us the space and want to talk about it, that's fine too. That's what we're here for. At the beginning, I wasn't even supposed to be at this city commission meeting. I was supposed to be on an airplane right now on my way to our son's graduation from West Point Military Academy this weekend, but that isn't going to happen. He'll still be commissioned as a second lieutenant, and graduation will take place in June, but we're very proud of him, but also of all of the graduates of 2020 at high school. I mean, Adam graduated from Garden City High School as well. And their class motto, all of the classes at West Point have a motto, and theirs is, "With vision, we lead." And it was a motto that they that every class has, and this is one that has been with them since their freshman year. And this, I think, holds true for all of the seniors at high school, at college, at Garden City Community College. And that is that, this is going to be a year where you guys are going to remember your graduations, but also if you think about all of the different things that you've gone through and all of the different, you're farther ahead in a lot of ways because you guys are so versatile, and you've managed to just take on one obstacle and then just lead with it. And it's been humbling for me to see that. And yes, as a parent, to not be able to, see their kid participate, it's hard, but we get through it. And so I'm with you, parents who have seniors at your house. And so I just wanted to mention that. I'm really excited about the additional funds, talking about that at the special meeting and the potential for that for community development block grants. I think that's a great addition. And I was also excited to see just the civic engagement. The Zoom meetings have been tough, but at the same time, I have been impressed by the civic engagement, not just at our city commission meetings, but at the county commission meetings as well. And I hope that continues. I hope that engagement continues once we go back to those in-person meetings. And so Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Euler. Commissioner Dick.
I was going to say a lot of the same things that me, Commissioner Ortiz and Commissioner Euler was going to say. I grew up going to that. That's where I learned how to swim, was at the big pool. And I remember my grandparents taking my cousins and I, and that was one of the things that we really looked forward to, especially when we weren't living in Garden City and we came to visit my grandparents here. So it's a very, very difficult decision. And like Commissioner Ortiz said, back in last time we did this vote, I strongly for opening it one more year, and it just doesn't look like it's possible this year. I do want to say some things. Remember, census, do whatever you need to do to get that in. We need to get everybody's count in. This is a very difficult time to get those counts. So if we do the steps of sending in that stuff, making sure it's easy to get counted, get that done. Again, and this will be the last time I mention it, great job to the school district, again, for a very successful school year, especially given all the challenges they had, the teachers, the principals, the students, the parents. Really good end of the year. Also like to give a shout out to Centura and the amount of masks and hand sanitizer that they've been donating these last couple of days. I believe it's like 25,000 personal masks in Southwest Kansas that they're giving out at Sam's and Walmart and stuff like that. So it's great to see a company like that step up and help out our community. They're a major player during this time, and I'm glad to see that they did that. I did want to ask, and I don't know if we've had it yet, what the plan is for the reopening of the zoo. To me, I mean, the zoo and the pool kind of go together. So when we're talking about reopening or how the pool would handle, I'd like to see at some point just what that plan is to get the zoo reopened, because like we do need those recreational spaces, and that's another place where it's fairly easy to social distance at the zoo just because of the size we have, and you don't have to interact with a lot of things. So I'd like to see that going forward, at least the outline, what the phases would look like, or that sort of thing. And I'm sure it's already in place, and maybe we've even seen it. I just don't remember off the top of my head that I've seen that. So I'd like to see that. And then the last thing I'd like to say is it is good that we are able to go to businesses and start to patronize restaurants again and go to shops. Looks like you can maybe get your hair cut pretty soon, which is good. But at the same time, please wear a mask. If you look at the research on what prevents spread when we're together, it's wearing a mask. And the thing is, and this is the difficult thing, when you're wearing a mask, you're not protecting yourself. The point isn't to protect yourself. The point is to protect everybody else that you're coming in contact with. The way that a mask works is if you are infected, it stops your spread from everyone else. If it's out there, it'll come into you if you have a mask or not. It stops you from going out. So if we're talking about Garden City Strong and I'm community minded and all these things, the most community minded thing we can do right now, if you believe in our economy and you believe in the industry and you believe in commerce and you believe in being able to do things like going to the zoo and maybe even the movies soon, wear a mask to protect everybody else so we can keep on doing this. It's about the community. It's not about just yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dick. Commissioner Cessna.
Yeah, I would like to thank all of our staff for all that they've done last couple of months. It's been tough on everybody, but keep up the great job that you're all doing. There's only 2 days of school left. Starting tomorrow, we'll be wrapping up the school year. It's been one of the most unusual school years we've had in the community as well as the whole country. They're working on guidelines as we speak on trying to reopen next year. So hopefully we'll open up and have a successful year next year. But the last day of school is Thursday of this week. That's all I've got.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Cessna. Well, so again, I thank everyone for attending on our Zoom meetings. I know these get long. I mean, it's not going to be, so we got 2 hours off this week. So we're kind of spoiled this week. So I did want to read a definition I found this week. Well, I love Margaret Wheatley, and she has a definition of sane leadership is the unshakable faith in people's capacity to be generous, creative, and kind. And I'll tell you, the thing that really excited me, so there's been a couple of things I love seeing. I don't know if you've been involved with the Adopt a Senior or not. We adopted some seniors, and oh my gosh, well, not only their level of gratitude, but also just it was kind of fun going out shopping with a mask and, buying for someone that, really didn't get the type of graduation, but just their gratitude and that ability to be creative. And that's really Garden City being creative. I did want to mention Memorial Day is coming up, and our cemetery, if you want a place to walk, to contemplate, or to think, to pray, it is a wonderful place. Looks incredible again. I love the new sidewalk around it, but again, Memorial Day is coming up. And so I would encourage you to take a walk in the cemetery. It's just a really great place to get away, and it has a lot of trees. I do want to mention, and Matt mentioned this earlier, I was invited to go out to tour Tyson. And from the time you walk in there, they are really interested in the safety of their people. And, Tony Lang and Dennis, and I can't remember Dennis's last name, but Tony Lang talked about that if people don't feel safe, they're not going to come to work. And I'm going to tell you, from the time you walk in, they take your temperature, and depending on your temperature, whether you get in or not, and from that point you wear a mask all the way through the plant. They had a lot of great processes in place that I've been able to share with not only my church, but also 2 other churches, when you're thinking about how can you manage big groups of people if you're going to get ready to meet. But I would encourage you as commissioners to please take advantage of touring Tyson. They are really working hard to protect their people, but also to protect Garden City. And some of the techniques that they are doing and that they have learned, I think they can be implemented as we open some bigger venues. And I know that we got lots of ideas. I think our hands got sprayed 12 or 15 times. I stopped counting at 12 times, but I'm going to tell you, they are very serious. And the cleaning takes place around the clock, nonstop, which leads me to talk about this idea that, when you think about a place that impacts the world, we talk about our motto as the world grows here. There are things in that plant that go all over the world, Egypt and Japan and the Middle East, and it's amazing. I mean, but really, our Tyson plant impacts the world. And so, Tony, I just really appreciate your invitation and the excellent job you're doing. Thank you for caring about your people enough and caring about Garden City and really doing an incredible job as Tyson. And so it was a very impactful tour for me. And I'm taking that knowledge and hopefully spreading it to others in a good way to talk about some of the techniques that you're doing that will really make a difference as we grow, as we go back together, especially in churches or other big venues. The last thing I want to say is the big pool is something. It was very hard for me. I'm like Commissioner Euler. I was up at 3 o'clock this morning, really contemplating, and it's something I care deeply about. I love our history, and I think that's what makes us who we are. And moving forward, we have a lot of history to create. So I thought about the 2021 season, and I'm going to tell you, I am excited about our big pool complex. I was surprised that wasn't one of the names, but maybe now it will be when we talked about our naming. But I'm going to tell you, I've been walking around the big pool and just doing memories. So I encourage you to go down to the zoo, walk around the big pool, and reminisce, think about those times. Like Commissioner Dick, I remember, there's lots of different things that we did down at the big pool. A lot of those things don't exist anymore because they had to get safety. They had to put additional safety things in place. But I just really appreciate all of the public input, and not only through this decision, but really all the decisions. And so, we are wanting your input. We want to hear from you. That's why we're elected, and we are called public servants because we really want to serve our public and also serve Garden City. So with that, I am so grateful that you came here on Zoom. We're looking forward to, I don't know how many more Zoom meetings we're going to have, but I really appreciate your time, your attention, and your energy in the Zoom meetings. And so with that, we're going to call this adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks.